Today on the Diz List, we list 10 first-timer mistakes at Walt Disney World.
Welcome to the Diz List, the podcast that lists everything in Walt Disney World. I'm Nick.
And I'm Rob, and welcome to episode 102, where we list 10 first-timer mistakes at Walt Disney World.
We all make mistakes, and I think that the first-timer mistakes are ones that even seasoned vets make.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, but
we get to that every time.
So there's definitely some mistakes we all make. Anything interesting happening in the world of Disney this week?
Yeah, I don't know if you watch this or not, and we haven't talked about this previously or even beforehand, but on Disney Plus, there's a lot of good new stuff. Yeah. One of the things, did you see the Frozen? Did you see it's Hong Kong Disneyland's behind the scenes on creating the Frozen world?
So this week has been just completely awful. It's been the week from hell.
I actually had a lighter week for once. I rarely do.
I did not.
And I did this week. It was great.
We had multiple things every single night. It was crazy. So I didn't get a chance to see it. But I have plans to see that. I've got to sit down and watch Acolyte because I know that's the next thing you're probably going to bring up.
Yeah, I watched the first episode.
What'd you think?
So the review that I read online was the Star Wars fans are going to like it. Everyone else, not so much. I don't necessarily agree with that. My son, though, and this is important that I bring this up too, my son is also a big Star Wars fan, and me and my wife and my son watch them together. My daughter, not so much, and that's fine. And I said, do you want to watch The Acolyte with us, to my son? And he's like, nah, this doesn't look interesting to me. I go, really? I said, it's lightsabers. It's a lot of, traditional Star Wars-y type of stuff.
Right.
He's like, man, it doesn't really look that good. I said, all right. So I asked my wife, I said, do you want to watch it or do you want me to watch it on my own? She goes, no, it looks interesting. I want to watch it. So we watched the first episode last night, and I don't agree with that take about how it's only going to appeal to the Star Wars fans.
Okay.
The story was great, and the story was very much in line with your classic Star Wars stories. And again, that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Because I'm very,
I got
I'm very cognizant about not ruining things.
You're sensitive. I
get
it.
But the story was great. The characters were engaging. Uh-huh. And there's 2 episodes out. We just watched the first one, finished it, and I was very intrigued. There's mystery. There's action. I thought it was really good. Yeah. As opposed to, if you're a Star Wars person, we're not going to do this too much. But the Star Wars people, I'm sure, are pretty excited here. So, for the show Andor, for example, starts really slow.
Yeah, very slow.
But it's 2
awesome.
episodes.
I love it.
It's great. It's a slow burn, and the end, that whole prison sequence at the end, is fantastic.
It's crazy. So
this show is not like that. This show is exciting, and there's a mystery right at the beginning, and you'll be hooked from the start.
Cool.
So even if you're a casual Star Wars fan like my wife is, she was hooked right away. So I would definitely recommend the show.
Awesome. Well, like I said, it was a busy week, so I was unable to watch it yet. My son is excited to watch it.
You both will enjoy it.
So we're planning on. Originally, we were going to do it yesterday, and we did yard work all day, and then I was busy in the evening, and then today we're recording. I think maybe this evening after dinner we're going to sit down and watch the first episode. I saw a reel, which I was like, you can't do that. You have to be schooled. So I'm going to set this up like this. You work for Disney and you're a face character. Imagine that. Okay.
I'm with you.
And you're greeting people or you're at a restaurant and they ask you something. They ask you a question about your universe that is completely fictional, but you always get it right. The character, one of the main characters was on a talk show.
Oh, no.
And he made the comment, it's like when Anakin blew up the Death Star.
Oh, boy.
And it's like, well, I mean, I guess kind of like Anakin was Darth Vader at that point, so maybe he
was there, but he didn't blow up the Death Star.
I mean,
I'm trying to remember.
Anakin was maybe responsible.
He was there in the dogfight in Well, Anakin being Darth Vader at the time.
Yeah, I was
that's
like,
a goof.
So then I was like,
He just meant to say Luke.
yes, I understand.
Yeah.
But if Tiana at her meet and greet says something about her friend Rey playing the trumpet and Rey is the dead lightning bug, that's a problem.
Or calls Lewis Louie, which I've done before too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, I'm not working on Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
Right.
I can goof that up.
You're not making like a ton of money playing a character within the universe that you are representing when you go and do these talk shows.
Yeah.
Like I half wonder if George Lucas saw that and was like, "Oh my God, what has Disney done?" But like, my point is, like, if the face characters in the park are trained so well, how did they not teach this kid?
Poor kid.
Yeah, I'm not upset about it. It does, like, there are Star Wars fans going off. Like, this is why, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Like, do you really need to know? You know, do you really need to know everything about? To me, so the Willy Wonka remake, does he need to have been familiar with Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka? No. Doesn't need to. Needs to have read the book, maybe.
Yeah.
Needs to be told, you're an actor, right? So I don't think it's that big of a deal as what they were making it on, like, in the comment section of this reel, but I was like, whoa, that's a tough one, buddy. That's gonna live forever on the internet.
I have one last thing on Disney Plus that I watched this week that I also highly recommend.
Okay.
And that is the Jim Henson documentary
called
Idea Man. It was fantastic.
So I saw some people posting, like, I watched this and now I need to go back and rewatch all the Muppets again because, like, just because they said that, like, it reinvigorated their love for the Muppets.
Oh, definitely.
And yeah, that's another one I want to watch.
They didn't talk about Fraggle Rock very much. They did Labyrinth. I'll go in reverse order. Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, Muppet Show.
I love me some Dark Crystal.
At Sesame Street. And then before that, it was cool. I think he was part of Saturday Night Live for a while. They showed because he was talking with Chevy Chase and they were on, but it was called, anyway, that was part of it. But his early years doing the puppetry in black and white on these different TV shows he was part of was hilarious. It was really, really good. And I learned a little bit more about his life and how him and his wife started the whole thing together. And their relationship was kind of interesting back and forth, and his kids, and he got to work with his son on a movie, and it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it.
I think he's probably one of the creative geniuses of the last, half century.
And your opinion will change to believe he's even more of that after you watch this, because I share that opinion and did before.
Okay.
And I learned so many new things that he did that just opened my mind even more. You'll love it.
When you think about the fact that Jim Henson is so well respected and he's a puppeteer, you know what I mean? Yeah. Let's call it like it is. I mean, he's more than that, but, like, it's kind of amazing, really, when you think about it.
And he's a fantastic artist. There's a whole point where it shows all of his drawings that he did when he was over in Europe.
Yeah.
And his drawing skills were amazing too.
I want to bring up something that I got a message yesterday from a listener who we mentioned last week. And so I'm not looking for another message, but hey, if you want to send me a message to thank me again, that's fine. But we mentioned him on the podcast last week, Caleb. And Caleb, I know, is a big fan of Spaceship Earth. And he said he thought that the Wall-E thing, he's kind of like, hey, that's not a bad idea.
Really?
Yeah. And then he went on to say that some of my ideas were trash. And he didn't call them trash. I made that part up.
Well, he was hinting at it.
Yeah. So
wow,
I was
wow.
So the fact that
I got some support, that's great.
On something that I honestly think is quite controversial, right? I mean, that's a controversial take.
It was. That was my number one.
Yeah. So he said, so I won't put words in his mouth. He thanked us for the shout out, said that he was swayed about Spaceship Earth. Okay. And then said he's not so sure about getting rid of the three caballeros. And I'm like, so he's okay with redoing. I don't know.
It's that final scene, getting up to the top of that dome and having Wall-E and kind of sparkle through the sky.
Yeah, maybe we'll have Caleb on. We'll do a collab with his podcast. If you are looking for more Disney content, you can go over and check them out. That Disney Hustle.
That's a good name.
Yeah, they're locals. They're nearby.
Cool.
So we could do that. I actually coached his daughter in like micro soccer.
Oh, right. So, you told me about that.
Yeah. But we're gonna head off to the halftime show. We have 2 new patrons this week. I'm gonna mention them both, even though normally we do just one. But since we got 2 new ones, I think it's worthwhile. So we have Melanie, who joined, and she is from Canada. So awesome, the Great White North.
You're almost Canadian.
Yeah, pretty close. And then we also have Adam and Sarah, who said that they listen as a family, and they are UK patrons. So
nice.
we got
one of my favorite places.
Two patrons, or 2 new patrons joined up from lands that are not the United States. So I think that's kind of cool.
That's great. Love it.
So thanks a lot, Adam and Sarah, and thank you, Melanie. We really appreciate it. If you're wondering what we're talking about, patreon.com/dislesspod. You can join as a free member. And that would just, we're going to have chats, and you can see like some of the other things that we'll post there. And it's just a nice little community. If you join as a Dumbo pilot, which is $3 a month, you get early access to new episodes. And then at the Jungle Skipper level, which is $5 a month, so about the cost of a cup of coffee, you get early access to new episodes as well as bonus content. We do one of those every week. So basically you're getting 2 episodes a week.
So I'm signed up as a free member, which I know is kind of funny and
Yeah.
dumb because obviously I'm literally
Well,
part of the show.
it's not dumb because then we both I can be accessed on the Disless Pod actual one, and then
But what I like about it is that I get an email that says a new episode is out.
Yeah.
And it's,
reminds you. Yeah.
Wednesday morning, I'm like, oh yeah, the episode's out. That means our buddy we work with, Mark.
Yeah.
Mark will make some kind of sarcastic comment to us.
Or he'll tell us we uploaded the wrong audio.
Which has happened. So thank you, Mark. Shout out.
Yeah.
He's our buddy.
Yeah.
He helps us out.
Hey, what's wrong with the audio today?
I don't know. Scramble, check.
Yep. I'm texting Rob at 6:30 in the morning. I'm fresh out of the shower and Rob, you got to go back home.
Well, that's happened, half a dozen times through the 102 episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and Mikey sometimes does too.
Yeah.
Guys, there's something's wrong with the audio.
Yeah.
Which again is usually my fault. So I will take the hit for that one.
It's a shared thing because I should probably listen to it before I post it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Adam and Sarah and Melanie, thank you so much for becoming a patron. We're going to head off to the halftime show right now. And when we're back, we're going to tell you the top mistakes that people make when they're for their first time to Disney World.
We're talking about a lot of our mistakes today.
Yeah. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the mistakes that first-timers make when they're planning their trip or when they're not planning their trip or when they're on their trip, all sorts of different things. There's a lot of them, and we ourselves, as you more seasoned than I, but as people who probably consider ourselves to be decently expert at Disney, we still make these mistakes. So,
well, I wanted to actually talk about that because I've had 2 different lives going to Disney. I have been the kid growing up and just experiencing it. But with today's list with first-timer mistakes, it's not literally my first time to Disney. So there might be some people who fall into that same boat as me, who's gone their whole lives, but never had to organize anything. Now all of a sudden, it's my first time going with my family, and that's different. Yes.
Yeah,
do I know what all the rides are? Do I have I memorized where every single thing is in all of the parks? Sure, because I've gone there my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's different now because now not only do I have to take care of myself, but I have a whole family to look after and provide for and that type of thing. Now that's just me. It's my wife too, but it's looking at it through a different lens.
Well, I mean, I'm going to jump right in and just say that it's. And I'm not jumping in as in giving one of my things, but I'm just going to say that it's really your first time after every time Disney changes stuff. Really.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Because we haven't been. This is the longest we have gone. Because the last time we were in Disney World was with you.
Well, right, because you did. I mean, you did
because we did Disneyland. So it's a great point because when we go back now, there's a lot of things that are different.
Yeah, I mean, I've been. I was pre-COVID. I was during COVID, kind of because that 2021 trip, we were still wearing masks. Yep. We were still doing all those things.
Too, yeah.
There were no Genie Plus or Fast Pass or any of that. And then we've done it post. So it's been, there's definitely been a lot of different things that have happened over the years. And so when you say first time, this isn't an episode just for first timers, but like people, like you say, like when you go for the first time with a family, it's different than if you're going on your own.
Yes.
Or if you're going on your own for the first time, that's different. Or if you're going and you're staying on property for the first time, that's different. Or
that
you're
is
staying
too,
off property.
because you got to learn all the tricks.
Like I've never stayed off property,
yeah.
so I don't even know.
Like I called, oh my gosh, I don't know if I talked to you or you told me this, or I actually called Disney. I remember a couple weeks ago when I made that phone call to Disney and that lady was so helpful.
Yeah, but so
that wasn't this call, but things like learning if I get free parking or not. So I had to make a phone call to find out if my hotel, it's a Good Neighbor hotel,
right,
are they going to let me have free parking in the parks? Like that stuff, it's all new to me.
Right.
Because I haven't done that before.
Right.
So it's my first time at a Good Neighbor hotel. There's all these different firsts. So
let's go ahead and start off our list then. What have you got for our first time mistake?
So one of the first time mistakes that I made, and I haven't made all these mistakes, but this one I definitely did. And I call it a marathon day.
Oh yeah.
And I've referred to this on the podcast before, but if you're new to the podcast, what that means is you go at rope drop and you go hard till park close.
Yeah.
Which we did with our young kids for many years straight. And what happens around 4:00 is one of, if not more than one of your kids starts to melt down, or you get tired, or you decide to go to
the kids.
I went on Ellen's energy adventure and took a half an hour nap on that 45-minute ride.
Yeah.
True story. Anyway, so doing a marathon day with small kids, and this was actually a conversation I had with my friend Brian, who listens to the show. Shout out to Brept. Him and I talked about it, and I said, man, you're going to want to build in breaks. You have younger kids. You're not going to want to go the whole day. And he was kind of like, we'll see. And we'll see how it goes. And part of that, too, is building in opportunities to beat the heat. And that's part of that marathon day, too. So with our trip coming up, we're fully expecting to go home and like actually get back in our car and drive back to our hotel and just chill and like decompress for an hour and then go back over and just we'll be happier. We'll enjoy it a little bit more. But some people don't need it. And when I talked to Brian, that's why I brought up Brian, he was like, I texted him. It was like in the middle of the day. I said, how are your kids holding up? Because he was at the parks. I was here, obviously. He goes, they're doing good. They're doing great. They're hanging with it and they're doing okay. And some kids are like that.
Well, I think when you say planning or doing a marathon day, I think it's the people. So the marathon day is not a mistake.
No, that's my choice.
The mistake is not listening or understanding your own or your party,
your family's needs.
Right. Like I'm going with my brother this summer.
Yeah.
And there are a few days that I know that because we're at Animal Kingdom Lodge, and that's a decent trip away from not any of the parks, but
it's the furthest away from Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
That's the furthest point.
So that's a day where maybe I don't just have to read me. I don't just have to read my kids, but I also have to read the people I want them to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I'm going to be back and it's not a big deal. So reading those things, and like you said, you're going to go back to your hotel. Well, when you have kids at your age that are the age of your kids, it's a little bit easier too, because you said an hour. Let's be honest. It's going to be 2 or 3 hours, and you're going to go back over.
That's how long it'll take to get back to the car and drive. Yeah.
So you go back over there, you relax, and then come over at 6, 7 o'clock. It's cooler, and then the people who didn't listen to their family have already pieced out. Yeah. They're gone for the day. So I do think that's a really big one. I didn't really make that mistake. The only time I would say I made that mistake would be we, on our first trip, did a Hollywood Studios day where we also had a dining reservation that was getting us Fantasmic seating.
Oh, so you had to stay.
So we were there, and you know my feelings about Hollywood Studios. I purposely won't do those dining packages anymore. A, I don't think they're actually that worth it, and B, it means you're locked in to going to that because you are paying a premium for those. Okay, now I'm locked into going to Fantasmic, or I'm locked into staying for the fireworks because I have a dessert party, or I'm locked into whatever the thing is. Like maybe you have a Haleo reservation for the drone show because Haleo is doing a package. You're locked in and you're there until 10 o'clock at night, and maybe you can't do it.
Well, I was going to save this story for later, but it fits perfectly with what you were just saying. So I went on to do my dining reservations this week.
Okay.
And my son is so pumped on the sci-fi dine-in.
Really?
Drive-in, dine-in.
Dine-in. You're right.
He's pumped because he has celiac disease and he has to eat gluten-free. And his favorite meal is pesto pasta with pesto, right? It's his favorite thing to eat. So I was going through the menu, and he didn't even know they had it yet. And I was talking to my wife saying, I really want to do the sci-fi dine-in because we had reservations once and ended up getting canceled.
Yeah, and the whole world did.
And I know. And I'm going through the menu, and I was like, jackpot. And she goes, what? And I called my son in. And I told him, and he was like jumping up and down, so excited. Can we go there? I'm like, yeah, sure. So the window comes around the other day.
Yeah.
And I have it on my calendar. I have it with an alarm to go off and everything.
Yeah.
Completely slipped my mind. Didn't even think of it. And eventually I look at my calendar. I go, oh my gosh, I forgot. So I open up the app. I hit the button to schedule dining.
Good news is there's a lot of dining.
Well, there wasn't.
What?
There were two options only. There was 8:40 in the morning and 8:45 at night.
That's going to change.
I know that.
That's going to change.
And that's why I'm not nervous about it yet. So I grabbed the 8:45 at night.
Yeah.
But the other thing, too, is Fantasmic starts in 15 minutes after that. And we want to see that, too.
Yeah, so you just want to push it up to like a 7 o'clock.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to wait and just keep checking back every day and reschedule.
I can guarantee you that that's going to change.
Oh,
and here's why.
That's why I'm not too worried about it.
This is a total aside, but and it's not part of the planning, but the fact that dining, I've already said that was the case.
Yeah.
They were talking about it on an episode of another podcast that we listened to, where they were saying that a listener wrote in and said, what is going on with dining this summer? And guess what?
That's why I was so surprised that those went so quick on that day.
Yeah, there's no way. I promise you it's going to, and even if it doesn't, I'll bet you if you walk up and say, hey, I have a reservation for this time, but I was wondering if I can push it up. They're going to be like, oh yeah, we can move you up, because it is crazy how open. My wife looked the other day. She's like, I wonder if we wanted to add something, what it would be like. So we are 28 days out. We're 4 weeks away. And we could add Cinderella's Royal Table.
Oh my God. I just thought of that in my head before.
We could add that
Cinderella
at a normal time. It's like, geez, I don't know. All right. So
but the breakfast option, to finish that.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
The breakfast option was out automatically because his favorite dish is there.
You're not going.
And it's a gluten-free pasta, too. That's why it was a big deal.
I didn't think it was.
Well, I didn't say that. I know you realize that, too. But I wanted to complete that thought also.
It's got the gluten-free pine nuts in the pesto.
Oh, actually, it is really good when it's mixed into.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be there.
When we buy that paste, it's really, really good.
Did we
really only... We've only done our first one here?
Yeah. Yep. So I'll jump into my next one because this is gonna be a long episode otherwise.
Well, we have good stories.
Yeah. All right.
If they've turned it off by now,
that's fine.
That's their problem. So, people still listening, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah. So my number 5 is the app. And what I mean by that is you mistake your mistake is you don't study the app, you don't know how to use the app, or you don't know all the ins and outs, the extra ins and outs of the app, like virtual queue. And the app is. So when you download it, it's going to be called the Disney World app, but it links you to My Disney Experience. And on My Disney Experience, you can do all this fun stuff. You can plan your day. You can play games. You can do all these things inside the park. Don't do those things. Don't worry about those things. Don't use that thing to plan your day. But you do have to use it for like Genie Plus. You have to use it for
mobile order.
That's huge. That's like massive.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest game changers of that app.
Mobile order
is awesome.
It is a game changer.
Yeah, it really, really is.
Now, but like not studying the things like, for instance, the fact that if you want to eat at, say, noon when everybody wants to eat, you probably should place your order by like 10:30.
Yeah.
Studying the app for things like that. If you don't know how to use that app, you're going to feel so lost.
Or at least have one person in your party do it.
Yeah.
Like I'm that guy, and I know you and your wife both do together.
Yeah.
But my wife takes a lot of the pictures. She's a great photographer. So she generally is and my kids have kind of become that too. But so I've kind of become the app guy, and that's another recommendation for everybody is, figure out who's going to do it. Everybody in your party doesn't have to learn it. But
well, everything's there, right? I mean, you've got Genie Plus in there.
PhotoPass.
You've got PhotoPass in that app. You have, your digital room key.
Yep.
You can check into your room while you're on your flight on the way down if you wanted to. I don't recommend that. I recommend checking in at the front desk because then you generally are more likely to get the request because you'll go up and they'll say, oh, yes, I see you have a request for this, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. It's easier to it's harder for them when you're standing in front of them to say, we couldn't meet your request than it is for, in my opinion. I think that's what happens.
Absolutely right.
I think that's what happens. Now, I'm not saying don't do the virtual check-in if you are, if that's you. If you
or you're in a hurry.
Yep, do it.
That way you can go right to your room.
Yeah, or you get like last time when we went, we got a message in the car on the way over. Like we were we took FL tours and we were in the car from the hotel or from the airport, and on the way over, it was like, oh, your room is ready. It's like, whoa, that was quick.
That was great.
So we didn't even have to leave our bags with Bell Services because we had our room.
One more thing in the app that's a biggie for a lot of people.
What's that?
And I say all the time that I have the map memorized, but the map, and the reason I use this function is maybe that I have to find out where a bathroom is or where the character meet and greets. You can actually filter by what thing you're looking at, whether it's an attraction or a show or dining or bathrooms or meet and greets.
I'll do one better too.
Sure.
There's the water bottle filling stations are on there now.
Really? I didn't know. I'm going to look at that. That's cool.
Yeah. So the water bottle filling stations are important because you need to stay hydrated. And the fact that they added those to the map is nice too. They have little like, it's a special icon for it, but yeah. So they have that. I mean, virtual queue, like how quickly are you gonna be disappointed if you don't get to ride X, Y, or Z? Like if you're going on June 29th or June 30th, and you really want to ride Tiana's and you don't know about virtual queue, you haven't studied the app, you don't know how to do it. So I highly, highly, highly recommend studying just the app. I mean,
and wait times.
Oh, wait times are there.
I didn't even think of that. I opened it up and I'm like, oh, that's one of the most obvious ones. If you want to know how long they're saying you wait for a ride, which is not always true.
If it's a super high wait time on there, probably divide it by 3 and then multiply by 2. So it's 2/3 is usually what it is. They overestimate by like about 30%. And then if it's a really, really short one, I would say double it. So if it's like says, oh, it's a 5-minute wait, it's probably 10 because they're trying to attract people there and push people away from they have an incentive. So, but yeah, that understanding the app and how it works is super important. Genie Plus, virtual queue, all those things need to be understood.
So I'll go to my next one here. And this, I mean, I kind of told the story a little bit early, but another first timer mistake is showing up at a table service restaurant and thinking you'll get in.
Yep.
Sometimes you will. Okay, there is a chance you can roll the dice and say, hey, somebody just canceled, come on in. That is possible. But I would say most of the time, don't rely on that. Don't walk up to Skipper Canteen and say,
that's the one I was just thinking of.
Table for 9. And they're like, nope. Because that's part of it too. If you're going with another family or if your family is larger, you might have a better chance if it's just, you and your spouse or you and a friend, you're showing up table for 2, sure, come on in. Chances are better, but my point is don't think you can do that. You have to book that 60 days in advance.
Right. And I will say this, it's gotten easier to get dining, but I'm going to go back to that app thing. Mm-hmm. In the app, if you go to the restaurant you're looking to go to, you can add your name to a walk-up list, or it'll say walk-up availability is this long. So
very good point.
So you can kind of get a feel. Now, it may not be up to date on the app, so it might say no walk-up availability. I think it's still worthwhile if you're walking by Skipper Canteen. Mm-hmm. It says no walk-up availability, and you walk over and say, "Hey, look, I understand that." If you're really, especially if you're polite with them, they have been beaten down, right? These cast members all day long, people coming up, "Can I get a table?" No, you can't. It's booked. What are you talking about? How do you have a restaurant? Whatever, right? I didn't know we had to plan that far in advance.
have to be a professional at saying no.
Yeah. If you walk up and say, hey, look, I understand that you guys probably don't have any reservations, and I'm looking on the app and it says there's no walk-up availability. I'm just wondering, like, if potentially somebody's canceled in the last few minutes and the app's not up to date. If you're polite with them, I'm not saying you're definitely going to, like, that's going to sway them.
But your chances are better.
A heck of a lot better if you go in hot.
Yeah.
A heck of a lot better.
Yeah, like you want to ask your parents for money when you're a kid.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to get your dad when he comes home from work and throws his lunch bag.
Well, no, you ask mom.
Yeah.
You ask mom.
Well, sure. But you also want to ask mom at the right time, too.
Right, and if she says no, then you just go to dad and pretend you didn't ask mom. Come on, you can't tell me you didn't do that.
I know.
I know my kids do it all the time.
Yeah, you're right.
Hey, can I play video games? Sure. And then the wife comes in. What are they doing? I told them no. I don't know what you told them.
Dad said yes.
No. So the food thing is super important. Like not understanding that. I agree with you. And do your research on what, like you said, I was looking at the menu and blah, 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 blah. Another, like, I'm going to throw this in there. It's not on this is going to be a real long episode because I'm going to throw in these extra little things, but not paying attention to what's on the menu, right? Those menus are published for a reason. Mm-hmm. Oh, I want to go to Skipper Canteen because I love the Jungle Cruise. And then you show up and it's like not normal food. I love it.
Well, I thought you were going to say that one instance that I said recently. I want to go back to Skipper Canteen because they had
they don't have it.
And I can't remember. It was the spicy noodles.
Thai noodles.
Yeah. And now they don't have it anymore.
They have a replacement that's pretty good though.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to skip it completely because of that.
No, the noodle dish there is okay. Or it's good. It's I can't remember the name of it. Dan noodles, something like that. But,
I'm going to look it up and see what it. You know what the other thing was too, and this is such an American thing of me to say, but the portion was smaller, and I'm a big guy, and I like a good amount of food. And when you and I went, whatever we ordered, I felt like it wasn't as much food as the previous time. Is that all in my head?
I do think there's some shrinkflation. I mean, the one lady said it flat out that like it'll be good for the. Remember, she said something about taking the portion sizes down. It'll be good
that's
for some
right. I forgot about that lady.
Some of the waistlines. It's like, oof.
Yeah, I can't remember that lady's name, and that's why I had to preface that too by saying, and I know we have some Canadian and some UK listeners too.
Yeah.
It's a very American thing to have these giant portions and being upset.
Yeah, I don't know that I was upset with the portion size at all, but I understand.
I was a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's because you ate like 4 times your weight in shrimp the night before at Ohana.
You're probably right.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on like with restaurants. Make sure you're paying attention to all those things that you need to know. My number 4 is underestimating the amount of walking you're going to do. So, and for this, I mean, so your kid may have been out of a stroller for the last 4 years and might be 6 years old,
but
there ain't no shame in the game. Let me tell you, The first year I went, my son was 7 and my daughter had just turned 4, and we got a 2-seater, like it wasn't really a 2-seater, but it kind of is. My son could like stand on it and I could push still and my daughter would sit. Now neither of them at that age were still in strollers. We literally went out and bought one because it was easier to buy one. We bought it with the intention of we'll buy it for this one trip and then we're going to sell it. And I believe that thing is still in my basement somewhere.
Well, like you can still sell it.
Yeah,
it's in good shape.
Oh, it's in really good shape. We may have given it away at this point, but it was really good. And it was honestly for the buying it was like $50 more than renting one. And then like it was just easier that way, especially like it was our kids' first time in an airport. So it was like if we needed to book it, it was like, all right, kids, sit down. Here we go. Let dad run. So just underestimating how far you're going to walk. Your kids might need a stroller. You need to get ready to walk a lot. You're going to be out of breath.
I know where this is going.
Well, I mean, I wasn't gonna.
Go ahead.
Okay. You need to make sure you know what footwear you're wearing.
Reach under the table and grab that shoe.
Yeah.
There's a shoe under the table where Nick is right now.
I don't think you should be wearing, if this was a visual medium, I'm currently holding an Air Jordan. I'm looking at it and I see, it looks like it's got these cool cushiony things on the bottom that actually don't do anything. And
they look really cool.
Yeah, they look really cool. And the back's super stiff. But I'm guessing that if you wore them in a park, say Disneyland all day, you probably would end up having to throw them out because of the blood on the heel. And you'd have to go and buy a brand new pair of Vans. So that's Rob's Rob's claim to fame on this show is doing that. But
Yeah, but the irony of that whole story is I spent multiple episodes telling people to wear the right footwear, and then I think, oh, these look cool. I'm going to wear these.
yeah. Well, and it's partially because you think, oh, it's a smaller park. It's not like Magic Kingdom.
Yes.
And
yes.
so, but it's still so much walking.
Yeah,
You're going to walk 12 miles, or more. And think about that. Think about your kids walking a half marathon. It's okay to bring a stroller. And don't be the person who judges people about having the stroller.
No.
Don't
And
underestimate those
if
things.
someone has an issue with you about it, just let it go.
We have friends of the podcast who are, they listen here and there, but they are definitely followers on Instagram, and we're mutual followers and friends, and we talk, who do like training regimens with their kids leading up to their stuff. They'll go, okay, we're going to go do this. We're going to go to this museum, not because I care about the museum, but because we need to walk more. And it's real, man. You walk a ton.
My kids just competed in a full season of track and field. Actually, no, my daughter had an injury, but that's probably training enough. They'll probably be okay. Myself, on the other hand, I probably need to get out and walk for the next month or so to prepare.
You should just push mow your entire lawn. I'm not doing that with mine.
Yours is a little bigger than mine.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. All right, so that was my number 4, is us underestimating the walking. So what do you got for number 3?
So I did this when I was little. When I was really little, they used to have a ton of Country Bears merch.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing that I did wrong, and I'll get to it, and then I'll get to my story here. I'm skipping right to the story, but the first-timer mistake is buying plush and large souvenirs at the start of the day. If you do that at the beginning of the day, you got to carry that thing around with you, or you got to put it in your stroller. It might get stolen, which happens, more often than people would like, but things get stolen, or you got to cart that thing around. So I remember at the beginning of the day, I was begging for, and it's in the room somewhere.
It's right there.
Oh, it's up there. I got this Big Al stuffed animal, and the thing's huge. What is that thing? It's like 20 inches tall or something like that. It's huge.
It's not a small one.
And I remember carrying that thing around all day, and I did, but like it's a lot to carry around.
Right.
So
it's not like they're cooling.
It's true.
Furry.
And in the past, they had a service where if you made a purchase, they would send it back to your hotel room, and I believe they've discontinued that.
Yeah, they don't do it.
So what I would recommend, this is my advice, and we've done this with our kids too, is at the beginning of the day, before they even drop the rope, if you get there early and you go into the store there on Main Street, I'm blanking on its name. What's it called there?
The Emporium?
The Emporium. You go in the Emporium, you look around, you tell your kids, see what you might want later on. And they look around, and then they're like, I really want this. And I'll be like, cool, we'll come back at the end of the night. And that's what I say to my kids. And they can talk about it all day and be excited about it. And then that way you don't have to carry it around for the rest of the day. Yeah, especially if you don't have a stroller.
Yes. I think it's a good idea to also know that if it's something that is a hot item, just suck it up and carry it.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
So there are things that sell out.
What example, like some of the...
Like if you're there on a flower and garden opening day and there's something Figment that's being released.
And they'll go quick.
Or like if you're there...
That's a fair point.
June 28th in Magic Kingdom, you're like, oh, look at this cool little Tiana pin.
Or
that's going to be gone.
I want the, what is the name? Apollo raccoon stuffed animal.
Yeah, or whatever. Is it Larry the Aardvark or whatever it is?
I'm starting to learn their names.
But like when you have those kind of things, be aware that those may sell out. Popcorn buckets that are special, they might sell out. And so be thoughtful of that. However...
but that's another good first-timer tip, too.
For the most part, though, they're going to have... If you're just looking at, I really like this plush of Figment, or I really like this plush of Big Al, whatever, that's probably going to be there at the end of the night. And if it's not there at that one, if it's not specific to that park, it very well could be at your hotel gift shop.
Or ask a cast member, say, hey, is this a current popular one? And they're like, no, that'll be here later. Or we actually had one person say to us, I remember this, she goes, would you like me to put it in the back for you? And you can come back and get it later.
Really?
Yeah. I remember the lady.
Yeah,
she's like, I'll put it in the back for you.
Your mileage will vary on that one.
Okay.
Because I don't think that's...
She was very nice. She goes, I said, we're going to get this later.
Was this recently?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Could have been in Disneyland, because I remember what the lady looked like. Could have been in Disneyland, honestly.
Huh.
because maybe they have a different policy there.
Yeah, I mean,
listeners, feel free to send us a message.
I would say,
is that a normal thing or not a normal thing?
I would say your mileage will vary on that one. But
it's funny too, because the number of times I've been in those stores and shopped, like a lot of that bleeds together.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And that Emporium store looks very similar in Disneyland than it does in Disney World. So my memories of those two places kind of merge together because visually they're so similar.
Now, I will say,
the interior goes.
If you see something at Memento Mori, if you see something at the I forget the name of the actual shop, the one as you're coming out of Pirates. If you see something at those specialty end of ride gift shops, that you may want to purchase then.
Because a lot of those things you can only get at those shops. You can't get them on Main Street.
Yeah, like the Haunted Mansion stuff, they've got some amazing merch.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, oh, man, I don't want to have to carry it. But guess what? You're going to have to. And sometimes what I'll do, this is so like, 2024, but I will look it up to see if I can get it on Amazon. And if I can get it on Amazon, if I'm like, I don't really want to pack this, I'll order it right there. If it's the same price, I'll order it right there in the store from Amazon. I get home and it's already there.
Cool.
I've done that before. But that's, like that's stuff like, games. Like for instance, I think I did that with like a Monopoly game or something one time.
I remember you telling me that.
So like it was just
one
easier.
Of the Disney Monopoly.
It was way easier than trying to pack it.
Right.
So we have so many Disney themed games, but that's a really good one. My number 3 has to do with kind of like carrying stuff too, and mine is that sometimes people pack too light.
Oh, and they don't. Yeah.
This is for those of you in the Northeast who travel to Florida and maybe underestimated how hot it is, and you show up and you packed for your 7-day trip what a sane person would normally pack for a vacation, which is 7 outfits. And
we're gonna sweat a whole lot more than somebody who's used to that heat.
Yeah, you will. I suggest you pack double. If you're staying DVC and you have a washer dryer in your room, or if you're willing to spend on your resort day, take some of your time to go to the laundry at your resort and pay to do it. It's maybe in that case you don't want to overpack. But for the most part, I suggest packing 2 t-shirts a day, 2 pair of shorts per day. Like, it is hot. And underpacking is... Go ahead.
You want to hear a funny related, not related story?
Go ahead.
So I play in a band, and I have for many years. And when we were on tour in the summer, a lot of times we would buy a 12-pack of Hanes t-shirts.
And just throw them away.
Yeah. So by the end of our show, I mean, it is hot in those clubs. We are moving around. We're throwing our guitars around.
Yep.
My shirt is literally drenched.
That's quite the visual, folks.
Well, we don't have access to washer and dryer all the time. We're living out of a hotel or living out of our van. We would just throw the t-shirt out.
Seems awfully wasteful. That's the second most American thing you've said today.
I know, it's true. Absolutely true.
So,
but don't do that at Disney.
No. But like for real, like there are pictures of us from Hollywood Studios. Where if you
how gross is this story going to be?
No, but it's funny because like the picture, like there's pictures early in the day where we're wearing one thing, and then later in the
Mickey shirt. And
later in the day we're wearing something
shirt.
Completely different.
Yeah, because we needed to change.
It was like, oh my gosh,
so hot.
I remember going into Oga's and being like,
that was it.
It was like I'm going to run to the bathroom and change.
Me too.
And like once you changed, it was like, oh, so not only is it like you need to because you're soaked, but also because it's refreshing.
It's a nice reset button,
and you don't necessarily even have to take it to the park. I mean, I recommend you take one to the park, but if, like, in your hotel, you are going to go through more clothes than you think you're going to go to. So packing too light because, oh my gosh, I don't want to pay the extra fee. Okay, I understand, but you can maybe give up a pair of shoes and only bring like 1 pair of shoes. I don't suggest that, but maybe like give up something that weighs a lot, and then swap that out for some lightweight t-shirts because you are going to need more shirts, more socks, more shorts, more underwear, more t-shirts if you're wearing them underneath your like polos and stuff like that. You're going to need a lot of it. So that's my number 3 is packing too light. What do you got for number 2?
Number 2 is some people agree, some people won't. It depends on your individual situation, but a first-timer mistake, and again, another quick aside before I get into it, is I know a lot of people that have done this, and then I tell them after they shouldn't, and then they regret it. Here's what it is. Buying Genie Plus for all 4 parks. I don't want to say all days, but for your parks. So I had a friend recently who's like, yep, we got Genie Plus for every day. I'm like, really? Yeah, why? I go, I don't know if you need it at every park. And I went through and kind of explained, and then by the time I was done explaining, which I'm sure we'll discuss here in a second.
But they couldn't have gotten Genie Plus for every day.
It wasn't Brian.
No, but I'm saying they can't possibly have done it.
In advance?
Correct. You can't do it in advance.
Then why would someone tell me they had it in advance and that their travel person did it for them?
Unless it was...
This is what they told me. Unless it was travel guy.
Unless it was 2 years ago.
Could have been.
If it was 2 years ago, they could have.
Could have been.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
It wasn't that recent trip. You may be thinking it was Brian. When
no.
It wasn't that.
But like it wasn't... You couldn't even buy it in advance when you and I went together.
So it was probably from then. Because,
Okay.
I mean, I've been having these conversations with people about this for a long, long time. And they were like, yep, we got it for all 4 days. And I'm like, oh, okay.
But waking up and buying it when you're going to Epcot for the day is a mistake, I think.
I don't think you need it for Epcot.
I don't think you need it for Well, you know,
It depends.
it's going to be interesting with Animal Kingdom and Epcot.
Yeah.
Epcot's a borderline one, but Animal Kingdom's definitely like I've purchased it for Animal Kingdom. I've had a day without it. I've had a day with it. I shouldn't a day. I've had days with it and days without it. When we had it at Animal Kingdom, we noticed that the only ride that really affected or helped us was to ride the safari. I wonder when Dinoland USA closes, if all of a sudden now you might need it more. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there'll be fewer rides, but lots of people trying to go on those fewer rides.
I feel like I was listening to a podcast and there was an unofficial estimate as to when that's going to go down. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And the unofficial estimate...
Yeah, it's not going to impact me for my vacation.
Or mine, because
Correct.
mine's in August.
But, you know, if you're traveling, say, after Labor Day, you might want to reconsider.
And that's not official, folks. That's just rumors we're hearing from people that know people.
Yeah.
But very good point. And it's a money-saving tip. You don't have to buy it every single day. Yeah. Do you need it for Magic Kingdom? Yeah, it would be helpful. Like when we went to Disneyland, we wanted to hit as much as possible, so we did. Magic Kingdom is the park with the most rides, so it's very helpful there. Same kind of thing with Hollywood Studios. There's a lot of really big attractions that it'll be helpful to skip the line if possible.
Yeah, but buying it every day, though, is... I don't even buy it multiple... The only park I buy it multiple days for is Magic Kingdom. So like, what I mean by that is, if I'm going to Hollywood Studios, let's say I'm going for 2 days to Hollywood Studios, which I would never do, but if I did that, I'm only going to buy Genie Plus on one of the days.
Yeah.
Because then I'm just going to try to do all the big rides that day, and the other day I can be more, like, it's just... I agree with you. Like, doing that where you're spending that money, it's a lot of money. I want to throw out there too is if you have a park hopper and you have no intention of park hopping that day, let's say, and you're going to Magic Kingdom, purchase the park hopper option on Genie Plus anyway, because the multiple parks option costs the same as Magic Kingdom.
Oh, good point.
So just buy that anyway, just in case. Because I've heard people like, oh, I don't think I'm going to park hop. I had someone tell me that Hollywood Studios was, I think, the second most expensive that day. And I think that's usually how it is anyway. Yeah, but Hollywood Studios was the second most expensive. And it was like $3 or $4 less. And there was like 2 people on this trip. And they had park hoppers and they were staying at, I can't remember if it was the Grand Floridian or they were staying at the Contemporary. And they have park hoppers and they didn't get it. They didn't get the park hopper one. It's like, dude, it's $8. I'm not telling you how to vacation, but $8 is like, what, one drink in Magic Kingdom or in a park?
Yeah.
Like, spend that extra money because when you get back to the Grand Floridian or you get back to Contemporary, I mean, I did it. I always bought, because we were at the Contemporary. It was like, hey, I said to my son, Coop, you want to go ride Space Mountain? Yep. Okay, we'll go ride Space Mountain. Just a little bit so sometimes it is worth spending a little bit extra money.
Well,
but you can do that if you don't buy it every single day,
which
is what you just said.
Yep.
So I agree with you 100%. 100%.
Yeah. So that was my 2. We need your 2 is next, correct?
My number 2 is people plan too much. And this kind of goes to the marathon day thing.
Yeah.
But what I mean here is if you plan, so if you're a person who plans everything out, and I'm a planner, I like to know what's coming. My wife likes to plan. That's something we enjoy doing. However, planning too much, you're never going to get it all done, and then you're just going to be disappointed.
Well, another thing too with that is you can't control the weather. And if all of a sudden a lightning storm rolls in and it's a pretty heavy thunder and lightning for an hour, and that's not an excessive amount of time, anything that's outdoors or they're all offline.
Well, and not just that, but like people will plan stuff right now on, we've talked about in our studio, we have a video up all the time. And right now it's a Skyliner. Perfect example.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
Well, how do I get back to my hotel now?
Right. I mean, if you plan so much back to back to back and you forget the fact that, oh, by the way, the nearest, like, you're talking 45 minutes to go from Magic Kingdom to get back to most resorts. By the time you wait, unless you're going to a Magic Kingdom area resort, by the time you wait for your bus or whatever transportation you're taking, and the Skyliner is a perfect example. I went, ate at Topolino's, and I was stuck at Riviera if I didn't choose to use an Uber. Now, could I have waited? Sure, but imagine if I had planned, hey, we're doing this, but I have a not fast pass. Wow, my gosh,
I still say that too.
Yeah,
to be fair, I do.
I have a lightning lane for Remy's, and that lightning lane is at 8:00. And I have a 6:00 reservation at Topolino's. Don't plan on riding Remy's because after transportation and stuff, you're not doing it. So it's one of those things where you don't plan too much. You can't get it done. And then you're going to be disappointed. And the people in your party, I suggest, I don't know if you do this, okay, kids, you give me your 2 things you really want to do on this day.
Oh, I had this conversation with my kids the other day.
Yeah, and you end up with 8 things between the 2 adults and the 2 kids or however many people you have going. And it's like, we can do those 8 things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go 5 things per person, when you start getting,
mine kind of goes the opposite way now since we've been so many times. Our kids are now saying, I don't want to do A and B.
Oh, yeah, we get that. Yep.
And that's kind of what I go by. They're like, no, we're cool with whatever. Just these are the ones my daughter doesn't want to do Tower of Terror. She says she doesn't like drops and she doesn't like elevators. So that's out. So, maybe I might ride it solo. I might not do it at all. And if I don't do it at all, it's okay. It goes back to the mindset of I'm going back. I can do it another time or not a big deal.
Yeah.
If we miss a ride, it's okay. It's not a big deal. So, yeah. So that's mine.
Yeah. I think that really making sure that you don't overplan is important.
My number 1 it's kind of a Nick number 1 here.
Really?
Yeah. And my number 1 is, and I'm not picking on you because I just knew this would happen. Number 1 first timer mistake is thinking it's your one and only trip. And that was Nick. I mean, and we don't have to rehash the story, but
350 DVC points later.
Yeah. I mean, the quick version of the story is Nick comes to me, says, hey, I'm thinking of taking my family to Disney. We're going to do it one time. And I laughed, and obviously Nick has now gone multiple times, and we've gone together, and he's part of this podcast. So I guess my point is, and even if you think
let me just interrupt.
Yeah,
you really
sure.
This piggybacks off of my planning too much.
Yeah,
so well because had I known that I was going to, I wouldn't have tried to jam everything in.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that I tried to jam everything in and all the specials is probably why it
may help sell it. Yeah.
But go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. My point is though, let's say you're the parent listening. I mean, I'm sure there's kids listening too, but you're the parent and you have decided this is my one and only trip.
Right.
And you're pretty solid on that. Mm-hmm. And you're solid on that after you leave because it's expensive or you don't like the heat.
Yep.
But there are other people that you went with. And maybe your kids are now hooked or obsessed and they want to go back. Mm-hmm. So that might happen as well. So you may want to just at least keep open to the fact that if you're going to Disney for the first time, hey, maybe I might I might have to go back again.
Yeah.
So, and maybe you'll get obsessed like us. Maybe not. Maybe you go back again in 10 years. Who knows?
Well, I had a patron reach out to me this week, Brian, because we're really popular with the Brians.
We do have a lot of Brians.
So Brian reached out. One of the Brians reached out and said, basically was commenting on one of the things we said during I can't remember if it was during our main episode or our Patreon episode, but basically along the lines of like, I do think it's interesting that like people like you and I are so in love with Disney, right? And people would look at us or talk and be like, really? Like you guys are Disney people? Because, we don't look like your typical Disney person. We don't, you play in a hardcore band, done that your whole life.
We just look like guys that are walking around in the Buffalo Bills parking lot.
Right. Yes. And some of my students are like terrified at times of me.
Most times, but that's okay.
So, there's that. Like, and the idea that we're Disney people, I think comes from the fact that you don't understand how comfortable Disney makes you feel when you go. Yeah. So that was my thing is I didn't like traveling at all because I don't like feeling uncomfortable places. I like, I don't like kind of opening myself up for potential, like, oh my gosh, this is going to go wrong. And now what am I going to do? I don't know this place. I don't know how to get here. I just get anxiety about that. And it's like, it's tough. But Disney you don't feel that way. And so when you go there for the first time, thinking it's your one and only, and then you realize, wait, so I felt comfortable this whole time. It was really easy to get around. No, like people were accommodating. The cast members were super nice. And by the way, like my kids were entertained while I was also entertained, and my wife was like everybody there's something for everybody. It's really doesn't take long before that first and one and only to be an annual thing. Or an every other year thing, or every third year thing. But I'm going to say that if somebody tells me they're only going once, I'm going to tell them, okay, all right.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Because I said the same thing.
Yeah. And now you just quote me every time.
Yeah.
Well, we felt that too when we went to Mexico. And we had a great trip to Mexico. But so many times my wife and I would talk, and she was nervous because we didn't speak Spanish when we were there. And it was very difficult for us to kind of communicate the gluten allergy at times, not always. But we would always come back to, well, that's why we like Disney, because we're safe. And I'm not sure this is going to happen forever.
As long as you don't need to get Raglan Road.
Well, every trip we've ever done, we have not, knock on wood, we have not gotten cross-contaminated or sick.
Yeah.
So we have really good track record with that. So anyway, you got to have one more on your list?
I do. And my number one is like completely contradictory to my number two.
Oh boy.
So number two was planning too much.
Yeah.
Number one is not planning enough.
And be prepared, like the song.
Yes. So I've told this before, and I'm pretty sure they don't listen because I don't even know if they know who I am. But my mom has some family members so my mom's husband's family members are like, we're planning a trip. And by planning, I mean, hey, let's go to Disney. And that was about the amount of planning they wanted to do. And I told my mother, I said, have you explained to them? I tried to, she said. And I go, well, if they want it to be their last ever trip to Disney, they should go that relaxed.
You need to have a bachelor's degree in Disney to go these days.
Like, you need to at least, because they were like, well, we could eat here and here. And they had like a group of 12. And my mom was like, that like the time you want to go is already like, you're not getting a table for 12.
Oh boy.
And like, just not understanding, not grasping. Well, we did it when the kids were young, when we were young. That was 15, 20 years ago. Things have changed, right? We'll go during this time and it's not as busy. Well, there's no such thing as a not busy time anymore. Yeah. And so not planning in today's Disney, not planning is a recipe for you. If you want to hate Disney, if you want to walk away from Disney, if you want to cure your Disney habit, don't plan. Show up unplanned. Yep. Now, that said, I would love to one day you and I go and just have no plans and just see where but that's because we go and we would want, but if you're going to bring a family for an experience, for like a big trip, you better plan. I'm sorry. So I know this is completely the antithesis of what I said in number 2, but number 1, man, not planning enough that's a death warrant.
Well, you find a happy medium between the two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's kind of where you and I are now. We know what we need to plan for, and we know what parts of the schedule we need to leave open for certain reasons, for weather or for kids being tired, or the flexibility of your kid choosing a different ride or using Genie Plus and only this ride being available. Or I know I keep going and going, but there's so much. Or you get into the virtual queue, and the virtual queue you wanted to leave, like I just said, at 1:00. All of a sudden I get to Magic Kingdom and my Tron virtual queue is 2:00 and my Tiana's is 3:00. Well, now everything changes because that time we were going to go back and rest. Now we have to be in the parks for those. So therefore, I just told you I planned, but I also have to plan for changing those plans.
Yeah.
It's so complicated.
It is I disagree with what you said when you said you didn't need to have a bachelor's degree. It's more like a PhD. And the D stands for Disney.
Or point people towards our podcast. And we're not even like the best.
Oh, we're definitely not.
We're good, but we're not the best.
Yeah.
So point people towards us, or point people towards
Ear Scouts.
Ear Scouts Rob's videos, or like there's places you can go to point people if they say, hey, we're going to do a Disney trip, just like it was in the 90s or whatever.
Yeah, I'm like,
okay, well, listen to this. Like, even this episode people are listening to right now. It's not that long. It's not as long as I thought it was going to be.
No, listen,
I think we'll still be an hour episode, but, like, this is a good one to recommend to people to listen to.
So, like, the other thing that they told my mother was like, well, we don't even have to go to Epcot. The kids don't like that. And I'm like,
what?
I was like, Mom, you're so... You have Frozen Ever After. Yeah. You've got Remy's.
Ratatouille.
You've got Cosmic Rewind. I'm like, those are 3 of the best rides in the.
And there's a whole giant Nemo.
Well, I was like, what is going on? I'm like,
notice we didn't say Figment.
Yeah, I was like, Mom, like you can't let these people do this. And she was like, I tried, but she's like, what I'm going to do is let them fail.
Okay.
And I'm like, that is the most mom thing ever because
Okay.
I can't do that. And I'm a parent and I can't do that. But my mom's like, yep, they'll figure it out. So to my knowledge, nobody has actually gone through with the planning of that trip. And so they're not actually going. But if you don't plan, oh my gosh. I was sitting at the dinner table while my mom was telling me the story. And you know me. So I was like.
You were sweating.
I was. I was like, I'm like, Mom, this is giving me anxiety. It's not my trip. I'm like, my heart is beating faster. I was getting like little alerts on my watch.
And plus we're teachers because like we help. That's what we do. If someone needs help with something, we push them the right direction.
I can't let these people just completely fail.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what you got to do sometimes. So anyway, that was my number 1. And I hope that you guys got 10 unique things that you should do because we didn't overlap at all, but 10.
No, but it's funny you said that too because at the opener of the show I said 10 things and then we each did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But for the record, they're just things. This is not like my number 1, even though it's thinking it's your one and only trip, sure. But sometimes when we do lists, it's what we think is best and worst. I think this is kind of our list of 10 things that are like important. I don't know about you, but for me, it's just like
I would say
they're interchangeable.
I do think my top 2 are interchangeable, but my top 2 are my top 2 for a reason. The planning too much and not planning enough.
Yeah,
I think those 2 are super
funny.
important.
Funny next to each other. Though.
Yeah, but it's the truth. And if you know, you know. Like people listening to this who've never been, because they're listening to first time mistakes, are probably like, I don't get that. And people who've been are like, oh yeah, they are so right. And it just is what it is. You know if you've done this. Because this is a first time kind of episode, right? This is for first timers. A lot of time, like I know I didn't necessarily I wasn't listening to podcasts before I went to my first time. You should recommend, if you're listening to this and you have a friend going and they're not listening to you or they need a little bit of a nudge, pass this podcast episode along to them. I'm not saying that because we want all these, I'm not looking for you to do advertising for us, although it'd be great. It's more about like, help your friend out. Let us be the ones that break it to them, you know?
So the first thing you want to do if you're listening in your car is pull over. Pull over to the side of the road, but far enough over so no one's gonna bump into you.
Make sure it's not on the crest of a hill.
You're gonna hit that button. It looks kind of like a piece of paper with an arrow pointing up. This is how I teach my middle school kids. Hit that button. Then you're gonna type messages, and then you're gonna type in somebody's name who would love to hear this episode. And so I told pull over. I don't want people getting in accidents.
Yeah,
I care about our listeners.
Yes, but definitely like we're joking, but we're not. I wish I had known some of this stuff. I mean, Rob tried to warn me. Hey, you're not going to go just once. He was right. I have made some of these mistakes. You have made some of these mistakes, and you know it's funny.
And recently, I've made these mistakes.
We still make these mistakes. It's just a good reminder. So it's not just for the people who are going for the first time. But we want to thank you so much for listening and sticking with us. Again, patreon.com/DizlessPod. You can follow us at DizlessPod pretty much on all the social media networks. Check us out at magicmerch.art. Last week we had our spotlight design was the Hatbox Ghost.
I got a lot of really good compliments on that.
Yeah.
They're like, you drew that? I was like, yeah, thanks.
It turned out the shirt looks phenomenal.
And even on light blue, you'd think, well, it's kind of a indigo, kind of purpley blue. You've seen it in person.
Yeah.
The grays and the blacks look awesome too. But every T-shirt I have is black, pretty much.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I always find myself when I'm going down to Disney picking the color of the shirt based on how badly will sweat show.
Yeah. So black or navy might be a good color for you.
Yeah. I think this week, because it's starting to get hot down in Disney, this week our spotlight should be the Hoth Tauntauns
tank top.
Yeah.
The
Hoth Tauntauns tank top.
Yes.
I don't know if that's on our Etsy store, but it's definitely on the magicmerch.art.
I was looking at that one the other day.
Yeah. So
I was thinking if I'm going to get that, it's good because it's snow themed and it's white and it's a tank top.
Yeah. Definitely.
So that's a good spotlight one for this week.
Yeah, because it's starting to get a little spicy down there, as they say.
Just a little.
So thank you guys so much for listening. It's been a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just a list away.
Tune in next time, and we'll see you real soon.